maybe you wiggle around a little bit. So maybe back and spine and head and arms stretch just a little bit. So we can come into this comfortable place for here what we're going to consider about 3 or 4 minutes. When you're there, take that nice deep inhale and that longer exhale, settling into the weight of the body. If that's helpful, one more deep inhale, a longer exhale. We're going to actually settle into the weight of the body from the top down. So if your eyes are open, I'm going to ask you to maybe lower your lids, not fully close. If the eyes are closed, the first thing we consider is just how are we feeling in this front side of our skull, the face. And sometimes it's helpful to think about, I draw in my breath, and as I exhale, I relax through the front of the face. Breathing in, exhaling, relaxing through the back of the neck. This idea of relax may not resonate, so maybe we think ease. With the exhale, more ease enters the body. Breathing in. With your next exhale, we feel the shoulders melt away from the ears. The arms are heavy, resting in a way that feels comfortable to you. Breathing in and allowing a sense of ease to come into the front and back space of the heart, the chest and shoulder blades. Breathing in and exhaling into a sense of ease or relaxation in the low back or belly. Inhaling, and with your next exhale, we have a sense of ease that comes into the hips and maybe the seat. If you're resting on your back, maybe we feel that sense of ease running from shoulder blades to sacrum. And finally, one more deep inhale, sense of ease or relaxation, heaviness that comes into the legs. With your next exhale, imagining it traveling all the way from the face, back of the neck, down through torso, arms, abdomen, low back, and legs. And as we're resting here, just pause to notice what might be present for you, what's present outside or internally in our physical body, perhaps mental and emotional bodies. This awareness of what's present may include an idea of not a lot that is present today in your awareness or notice. That too is okay. We allow ourselves to be resting here in a bit of ease and noticing whatever may be present or what's not present. Bringing our awareness or notice back to the breath, and without changing breath, noticing expansion. So as I breathe in, where do I feel my breath travel? Where do I feel a sense of opening or expansion with the in-breath? 2 or 3 breaths, just noticing expansion. And today, as we notice the exhale, I'm going to ask you to maybe invigorate that exhale just slightly by letting the belly draw in, or just noticing how that belly might be drawing in on the exhale. So we inhale into expansion. We exhale, invigorating that core, belly drawing in. This is one of the skills we use to center, literally in our center. So inhaling into expansion, exhaling, invigorating, drawing belly in comfortably. It doesn't have to be gripping. 2 more breaths with that idea of expansion and invigoration through your core. And then just a nice deep inhale, exhaling out the mouth. If your eyes are closed, we're gonna slowly blink them open or refocus our open eye gaze. We're going to be moving to our knees. And since we're at home, hopefully we're on carpet perhaps, but if we need a little extra support, you can grab a blanket off the couch, a pillow, that might help. We're going to be on our knees for a little bit. So that's why that suggestion, if that's a little bit tricky, you may want to find something that helps you in easing some of the pressure through the kneecaps. So as you set yourself up here, we're either on palms, we might be on fists. We let that weight settle into the palms and the tops of the feet. So one of the places we're grounding here is the tops of the feet. We tend to kind of let them hover and use the knees to ground. But let's see if we can push into those feet. As we push into feet and palms, we start to round the back, drop the head. We're going to move through our cat-cow. Belly drops, head lifts, we gaze forward. Still pressing through the tops of the feet and the palms or fists as we round, and belly drops, gazing forward, top of mat or even to the front of the room. On our exhale, invigorating that core, pulling belly in, push through those feet and palms. Inhale, belly drops, we look up at the top of the mat. Exhale, press. We're going to do 3 more of these on your own time. Thinking about belly expanding on the inhale, belly drops, and then belly contracting on the exhale. Getting a sense of how this is feeling, shoulders, back of spine, and pelvis, front of the space of the heart. We're going to do 1 more full one here, or finishing off where you are. And then we're going to move into this nice neutral spine. We're going to kick our leg out. So I'm going to kick my right leg out. So I begin with that right side, and it just goes straight out from my hip. And for some of us, we're going to stay put right here. A few of us might deepen that in a way that we experience it a little more intensely in that inner thigh. Either place is perfect. It just depends on you today. So how does this feel and where do you want to take it? And just pausing here, if the head is hanging, maybe give it a nice little shake no. Maybe a nice nod yes. This deep inner groin release. Maybe even back of the thigh release. Softening knee if we're feeling it intensely through the back of that knee. 1 more breath here. We'll rise back up. We'll take that knee, bring it on in. And as always, we give that tail a little shake. Tail feathers shaken. We're going to do that opposite leg. So kicking that foot out, finding the space where you want to be, either palms or fists, or maybe you're down on elbows. Dropping head if it makes sense, especially if you're on elbows, looking through those thighs. This space of release on the opposite side, that inner thigh, maybe back of thigh area. Fully breathing here. We have a tendency, and especially if this one feels like a deep stretch or a challenging stretch, to hold our breath. It's making sure we're breathing fully. Deep inhales and exhales. We'll do one more breath. And then we'll rise back up to palms or a fist. Bring that knee in, give it a nice little wag of the tail. We're gonna go through our thread the needle. So we'll start with the right arm. The right arm will reach up towards the ceiling. It dives underneath the left arm. And resting head and shoulder if possible. Lots of options with that opposite hand. Left arm might reach towards the top of the mat. A nice safe way to treat the neck if you're working with neck challenges. We might reach the arm up towards the ceiling. Hand might slide behind the back. So finding that space that makes sense for this side, makes sense for your neck. Opening through that back shoulder blade area, a little twist for our spine. And then we'll slide that hand, left hand back in front of the face. We'll untwist, reaching that right arm up towards the ceiling, give it a nice little wave and a little rounding through those wrists. And then we'll switch sides. So this time left arm reaches up, diving underneath, resting on the cheek and deciding where you'd like to go with that opposite arm, reaching to the mat, to the ceiling, or even sliding it behind the back. Deep breaths here. Letting that hand come back in front of the face, we untwist. Reach that arm up towards the ceiling, give it a good little wave. And then we'll bring hand back down. We're gonna take some pressure off the knees for a moment, shifting back either into child's pose, resting head, or if you wanna take those bellies and drop them to the floor, another way to release the pressure on those knees. So either space for you. 5 big deep inhales and exhales here. Filling that space of the backside body, no matter where you're at, that pressure on that belly helps that breath travel to the side body and to the back body. Two more full breaths here. And we'll come back into our tabletop. We're going to open those hips just a little bit. Right foot comes forward. Right foot comes forward. Back knee is going to stay fairly bent. We're not in that deep lunge yet. We'll stair step up just so hands are pressing on that right knee. Tailbone tuck here to increase the length in the front side of the thigh and the stretch in the front side of the thigh. Now we can stay put here. If you would like to invigorate, you can tuck that back toe and lift the knee. You do not have to do that. As you know, lots of choices here. So what makes sense for you this morning? How do you want to move through this opening of the front of the thigh? And just noticing length through spine, even if you have that knee lifted, still a tiny tailbone tuck. That protects that low back, helps us keep kind of from spilling forward, or in yoga we call it dumping into the belly. We want to keep strong through that spine. If you are lifted, carefully lowering that knee, we're all going to shift to stretch the front leg. So I'm going to start to straighten and reminding ourselves it's not important if that leg goes straight. What's important is that we get some sensation of the back of the thigh, either opening up, releasing, or feeling resistance often. Some options here. If that leg is straight, you might flex the foot to increase the stretch to the calf. A few of you might even end up resting back on the heel. Sensation, much more important than distance or trying to find this perfect yoga shape. There is no perfect yoga shape. And that's good news. We don't have to strive for perfection here. We're striving for sensation and what suits our body today. When you're ready, bend into that front knee. Let's bring it back to join the other. We give our tail a little wag again. We're gonna switch sides, pardon me. So now that left foot comes forward. We stair step up. If balance is tricky, it's that front foot that can walk a little further out to give you a little bit more balance. Tucking the tail. If you want to invigorate, we tuck the back toe and lift. Don't have to go there. What makes sense to feel this stretch for you in the front of the thigh? Just a few more breaths. If that knee is lifted, carefully lowering that knee down, we shift to begin to open up or straighten that front leg so we feel a little bit of sensation. Some of us might be resting hands on floor. Some of us might need to have our hands on thighs. And again, that's a balance if those hands are on thighs. So this front foot can move out to create a little bit more balance. If the leg is straight, you might pull the toes back. You might even sink back towards the heel in a forward fold. Noticing sensation here. That's really one of the tenets of any yoga practice. What does the pose feel like? We'll bend into the front knee. We're gonna shift back, and this time we'll give our tail a little wag. Come on down to elbows, and I'm gonna request that palms stay on rather than clasp here. Palms stay on, we let our belly drop, we lift our gaze towards our thumb. So we're in a fairly deep back bend here, and if that's too intense, give a little tailbone tuck to adjust that. So letting the belly drop here, stretching through that front side body. Pressing through the tops of the feet to ground. We're gonna move into dolphin if you choose. Couple of options here, just simply shifting weight back so we feel some stretch to the arms. We might tuck toes, send our tailbone up towards the ceiling so we are in our upside down V. For my folks with tight hamstrings, backs of the thighs, soften the knee because we're really looking to press the heart closer to the thighs rather than get straight legs. 2 more breaths here. We'll come down to knees. We're almost done with these knees. We're going to shift back into child pose or your version of child's pose. And in this case, if going back towards the heels is a little tough, drop the head, leave the elbows on, and round the back or the shoulder blades up towards the ceiling. Fully breathing here, deep inhales and exhales. Last breath, and then we're gonna tuck our toes. Doesn't matter where you ended up on your mat, no worries there. We're gonna tuck our toes and shift back. So we're doing a little toe squat. Not always pleasing for knees or ankles. And if that's the case, you're actually in a forward fold, arms can dangle. So either coming back into a squat position or in a forward fold, giving yourself a few breaths here. If you're in that squat, we're stretching those arches, those Achilles, getting a little more opening through the back. If you're in a forward fold, we're getting a little bit more back of the legs and back as well. Everybody send your tailbone up towards the ceiling. Come into your forward fold, maybe soft knees to protect that back, especially if hamstrings are tight. You might be holding on to elbows. You might be in ragdoll. Arms might be dangling. A few of you might rest those elbows right above the knees just to allow a little less intensity in this forward fold. One more breath here. We'll let our arms reach towards the floor. We're going to slowly restack our spine on an exhale. That exhale helps protect our back, a little counter to what we typically do in yoga, but it's a nice way to protect that back and engage that core. So no matter where you're at, stay put, but give yourself about 3 fingers between your big toes. So when I look down, I just look at 3 fingers between my big toes. I'm going to do a little bit of shoulder shrugging or rounding through the shoulders. Shoulder rolls just to open up that space. And then reverse your circle, rolling other way or simply shrugging. If you're getting a lot of feedback in those shoulders, it might be a better idea just to draw them up and push them down. And then allow those arms to be heavy. We return to this idea how we began class. So every exhale is bringing more ease into our body, and we start letting that head rest on those shoulders with ease. Take a nice deep inhale. Exhale, shoulders melt away from ears, arms are heavy. Breathing in. Exhaling to release the front space and the back space of the heart. Inhaling. Exhaling, feeling ease or release come into the low back and belly area. And on the next exhale, that weight, that ease travels from the hips all the way through the arches of the feet. This is a subtle practice of grounding, letting the weight settle into the feet, getting us really solid in our mountain pose. If you choose, opening palms to face the screen. And noticing any sensations that may be present or calling your attention. One more deep inhale and exhale. And then we'll bring our hands to our heart. We're going to move through that halfway lift sun salutation. So we inhale, fingertips reach. You're probably at the front of your mat. You're going to exhale, arms reach out, soft bent knees. As we aim for those shins or thighs. Inhale, just flatten that back. We call that the halfway lift. Exhale, release back down, look through those legs. Arms reach wide. As we inhale to rise back up. And exhale, hands come to heart. Inhale, fingertips reach. Exhale, soft bent knees, arms reach wide. Pressing into shins or thighs. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, release back down into that. Reach through the arms. Inhale, rise back up. And exhale, hands come to heart. Just one more of those. We're going to inhale, fingertips reach. Exhale, soft bent knees. Inhale, halfway lift, wherever those hands reach. We do skip those kneecaps. Exhale, release back down. Arms are reach wide as we inhale, rise back up. Exhale, hands come to heart. We're going to bring our hands to our hips and we're going to begin to open up. So if you have turned your mat, you're going to look a lot like me, mat parallel to your screen. If you haven't, you can shift that screen or just keep looking forward and back, however it works for you. Feet are going to go really wide. And when I say really wide, that is relative. So about as wide as when we do our forward fold, as long as that's okay in knees. Couple of things to think about. If knees are a little tricky, leave the toes aiming out. If you want to increase a little stretch to the outside of the shin and knees aren't so tricky, go ahead and bring the outer edges of your feet parallel to the front and back of your mat. So as we find this space, noticing how that might feel in that low back area, we're going to take an exhale to roll down. This may be where we soften knees to protect that low back. We start here in center. A few of us are going to pause, bring elbows right above those knees. Some of us are going to reach towards ankles, and some of us might be able to get palms or fists or fingertips towards the floor. I'm going to ask you here to rock back and forth. So I'm going to go heel to toe. If that makes you dizzy or you're feeling like, ooh, that's not very stable, just stay put with the idea of centering weight in the middle of your arch. Couple more here. Give the head a little shake, no. A little nod, yes. When you're ready, we're going to take hands to hips, use an exhale with soft knees to slowly roll up. Shifting now. So my right leg is going to turn, or my right foot is going to turn out. Right foot actually doesn't matter. You can go either side here because we're going to do both. We'll bend into that knee, letting knee come right above ankle. We're going to keep our hips open to that long side of your mat. We're going into our first warrior two. So arms reach. We gaze over those front fingertips. Breathing fully here. And noticing how this feels in the legs and spine. One of the tricks I use is to think about drawing my feet closer together. That lengthens my spine, really solidifies all the work that's happening, not only my legs, but my glutes. And we're gonna move through this just a little bit. I'm gonna straighten my front leg. I'm gonna turn my face to my screen. My fingertips reach up towards the ceiling. And then I look back over fingertips as I bend into warrior two. Inhaling up, fingertips reach. You might also be parallel arms. Exhale, bend. Now, if arms reaching is tricky, as you come up, you might do cactus arms. Bend elbows, elbows just a little bit lower than your shoulders. Let's do two more of those. Either cactus arms or arms reaching and bending in. One last time, inhaling. Exhale, bending in. I'm going to ask you to take your front hand, your right hand to the inside of your thigh, left hand to hip. Let's straighten that front leg. Once it's straightened, take this back hip, and it's like you're trying to knock the back of your mat. So I'm going to shift and let myself start to lower into my triangle pose. The idea is that my shoulders stay stacked. If you want to increase that invigoration, the arm can reach. As long as you can keep your shoulders and hips stacked, you can go a little bit deeper. Try not to rest the hand if you can on that shin or the knee or the thigh. That gives a little too much backward pressure. Plus, when we have that hand on the inside, we're building some core. You can feel it firing up here. One more breath. That back hand's gonna slide back down to hips. We come up, turn both toes towards, or I should say both toes in the same direction, or with that slight outward rotation. Exhaling, softening knees, rolling down to the space we found before, maybe elbows to knees, hands down to ankles or arms down and resting palms on the mat. If we get palms on the mat, maybe shifting those hands all the way back to the back edge of your mat, shifting weight into the balls of the feet. Head is released, give it a good shake, no, a good nod, yes. When you're ready, soften those knees. Use an exhale. That's going to protect our back, drawing that belly in as we rise back up. And we're going to shift to the other side. So opposite shift. You may have done the other leg. So again, doesn't matter here. We're going to do both sides, bending into the front knee. Arms reach. We find our first warrior two, looking over those fingertips, maybe drawing heels towards each other. They're not really moving, but it's the idea that they could. Belly might be engaged as well. Fully breathing here and noticing how this all feels. We'll begin to move a little bit, straightening front leg, arms either reach or cactus arms. Exhale, bend into front knee. Inhale, fingertips might touch at the top. Exhale, bend. If we're going cactus arms, bent elbows, elbows lower than shoulders. Exhaling in two more times. Inhaling up. Exhale, last time. Inhaling. Exhale, bending into knee. Go ahead and slide your hands behind your back. So I'm going to either hang on to a finger, I might be able to clasp, I might be able to grab hold of wrist. Straightening your front leg is a little different this time. We're going to go ahead and hitch our hip to the back of the mat, and we start to find our angle. So going into a version of triangle pose. A lot of core happening here. I'm rotating shoulder up towards the ceiling. For some of us, we might go a little bit deeper. We're listening to low back, we're listening to legs. This destination is always the least important part of yoga. the journey. So what does it feel like as we move through it? What's safe? What's pain-free? We'll bend into front knee, rise up. Hands come to hips, both toes turn in the same direction. So we can move through those first 2 forward folds where we're just sliding hands to a place that's appropriate. We might increase the shoulder opener. If you're able to clasp hands behind, let your hands clasp right behind at your tailbone. We're all going to start to soften the knees to round forward. If those hands are clasped and it's appropriate for your shoulders, we reach those arms towards the ceiling, knuckles reaching, a big shoulder opener. Remember though, we can have elbows just right above knees, hands at ankles, palms resting. Invigorating in a way that makes sense for you today, and also adjusting if that doesn't make sense. Sometimes this pose has a lot to do with the length of your arms and the openness of your shoulders. So if arms aren't long enough, this pose is just not accessible. For those of us with knuckles towards the ceiling, dropping those hands to the tailbone, everybody begin to rise up. This time, let's use an inhale. Make it that energetic lift. We're going to counterbalance here with a little bit of slide behind the back. So I'm going to take bent elbows and just let them slide behind. I might be able to hold on to fingers, wrists, or elbows, and then squeezing elbows and shoulder blades together. We're careful not to send the hips forward. Hips stay right above those ankle bones. This is just about opening through that shoulder area. We're going to heel toe our feet just a little closer together. Give yourself a little rock side to side. Let those arms swing and release. So a shorter, smaller stance. We're going to go ahead, come into an easy squat. So making it small or smaller to begin with, to notice if that works for your knees, and to notice if you need to make any adjustments. Some of us might go wider, some of us need to come in closer. And then we'll pull out of that so we're not holding that for too long. So once we found our space, we're going to add in arms. Arms reach. So now we're that 5-pointed star, that pentacle. I'm going to bend and squeeze my shoulder blades coming into a squat, and then lengthen back up. And I'm careful here to engage. I have a tailbone tuck. I bend. So I want to make sure my ab and rib cage are not spilling open, and inhale, lengthen up. We'll do that 2 more times. Bending in. Inhale, lengthen up. Exhale, stay in that squat, and decide if you want to play a little bit here in the heels. Maybe one heel lifts and the other heel lifts. Maybe both heels lift. Tucking tailbone, squeezing shoulder blades. Give that screen a high five. Fingertips are reaching pretty wide away from the palm. Big work in those legs. We were just talking about having to move a little bit here at the beginning of class before class started, to move and to get stuff a little tuckered out before we can find ease in the body. Heels come down, stretching arms. Arms come on back down. Give yourself a little roll, a little wiggle in and out. We've got 1 more series to go here. I'm going to take and turn my right toes to the back of my mat. My left foot can come parallel to the back of my mat or turn into that little bit of an angle, not an ankle. We're going to rotate hips forward and bend into that front knee. You're going to see me pick up my back foot and come onto the ball of my foot. That's to protect a hip injury. So you're welcome to hang out where it makes sense in that back foot. Adding in our warrior 1 arms reach. We can also be in cactus arms. We can also be holding on behind that low back. Pausing here to notice how this feels. Opening through that front thigh, that front left thigh. Hands come to heart. We're going to go ahead and straighten the front leg. So now we're in that straight front leg. We'll take just a little bow forward to see how this feels. This is a balance. So if you're feeling it, that balance is tricky, walk that front foot wider so you're more on a plank instead of a beam. Where does that angle work for you? A little stretch through the front of that leg. We'll bend into front knee and we'll just move back and forth through straight leg and bent knee. Straight leg and bent knee one more time. Straight leg, bending knee, let your hands come to your hips. Both toes turn to face the same direction. We're gonna immediately shift now. Left toes face the back of your mat, bend in to that front knee or maybe the front of your mat, and then shifting those hips. Once again, you're gonna see me adjust my back foot for a hip. You might have it planted at an angle. If you want to add those warrior one, arms stretching, shoulders melting away, use that exhale to let those shoulders melt away from your ears. Tucking the tailbone options, cactus arms, hands behind the back. 2 more breaths here. And we'll bring hands back to hip, adjusting that back foot or front foot if you need to. We're going to straighten that front leg. We come to an angle. This time with hands at hips, they either stay put, or if you would like to invigorate, we start to send the hands a little further away from the body. Any place that you would like to go. Maybe they go away from the hips low, maybe shoulder height, or up just a little bit higher. It's also perfectly fine to have hands down by your side, resting on your hips because you're getting all that you need in this position. If your arms are reaching, returning hands to hips, we bend in and out of the front knee. Bending and lengthening. 2 more times. One last time. We'll take the toes, we turn them both in the same direction, making adjustments for knees, they turn out, or making that adjustment for outside edges parallel to the short ends of your mat. Let's go ahead and slowly roll down. All options in play here. Elbows, reaching for ankles, coming down to rest hands. If you would like to rotate or revolve, your hands can touch the floor. We'll leave your left palm right underneath that face and reach the right arm, extending gaze in a way that doesn't create tension in the neck, that might release tension. So you might be looking down a hand at the side of the room or even up towards the ceiling. Don't have to rotate. You can stay in that forward fold just as you choose. We're going to switch sides. Right hand comes under face, reaches to twist towards the left. We are almost done with all of this leg work, standing poses. We'll come on back down. All of us, no matter where we're at, we're going to start to heel toe our feet a lot closer together, thinking maybe just under the hips. And then we slowly rise up on the inhale. Counterbalancing that by grabbing hold of the hands behind the back and squeezing shoulder blades. We're moving into balance, and so if you need to grab hold of something, go ahead and grab hold of what's going to help you balance today, wall, furniture, what may be available to you. So we've been, pardon me, there we go. We've been working through our tree pose, and I want to add in an element today, an invitation if you want to change up your balance. So let me show you tree first. You can join me in tree if you like, and then if you want to change it up, we'll move through that change. So hands come to heart. We're going to shift to the right foot. We turn the left toes out. That knee turns out. And then we may lift toes. We might have foot on shin. There may be a few of us who get the foot right into the thigh. Arms can extend and sway and change. Coming back down and through. We'll shift sides. I know that's a fast one, but I'm going to leave you to go through this a little bit on your own after we've found all of our options. So this time, rotating right out. Toes might come off. We might find the foot either below or above the knee. We always skip that knee joint. That's just too much lateral pressure on that knee. We might reach the arms. Arms might sway. Hands come to heart. Foot comes back down. That's one option. So moving through your tree, if that's where you want to be, take some time. do a little bit on each side, holding longer than we just did. A little longer hold is always harder. If you would like to do a little bit of a different balance, we're going to move through dancer. Now I'm going to start with my right heel kicking in. I'm sure I am. Right heel kicks in, and I'm thinking about the crease. I'm going to increase the crease. I'm going to soften my knee since I'm hypermobile. You might keep a straight leg. And then I'll lengthen my arm, press my foot into my hand to find this balance. So rather than pulling hand into heel, I'm pushing top of foot into hand. Allowing yourself to fully release and coming back down. And again, you may be doing tree at this point. We'll switch sides. So I'm going to go ahead and grab hold of my true left foot. So if you're looking at me and wondering which side I'm on my true left foot rather than mirroring you. Pushing my foot into my hand. I keep a soft knee and I begin to lengthen. Releasing down. Foot comes back on. And the invitation now, and I'm going to stay put, is for you to do a balance on each side, whether it's tree, whether it's dancer pose, holding as long or as little as you like, and then joining me back in mountain pose. So I'm going to stand here just nice and still for a few moments while you find your balance from side to side. Giving ourselves about 4 more breaths here before we find mountain pose. So finishing off the side that you're on. And then as you do find your mountain pose, a comfortable stance. So choosing a place where you feel really solid. For me, it tends to be my feet a little further apart. Palms facing thighs, palms forward, shoulders on your exhale, melt down away from your ears. And just take a moment to check in. To notice sensation if it's calling to you. To notice maybe thoughts or emotions that are traveling through the mind. This moment to reconnect here, to allow the energy to find its way through the body as we've begun to release areas in the body, freeing it from more tension. One more breath here. We are going to be transitioning towards the floor and to our bellies. If you would like to do that through a half sun salutation, you can join me. If you're ready to simply come to your belly, come on down to that belly. So I bring my hands to heart. I inhale to rise up. As I exhale, soften knees, arms reach wide. I'm going to plant my hands and I'm going to walk back. And today you can drop knees or you can go down in that full chaturanga. You're going to see me drop knees to protect neck and shoulders. And I'm going to pause here. Sneak back a little bit. I'm going to pause here with my hands tucked right underneath my underarms. Now, depending on your back, this may be plenty of back bend, and in fact, it may be too much. And if that's the case, just rest on the cheek with your hands down by your side. If you want to increase a bit of the bend, we inhale to rise up, and I'm using very little pressure on my palms. And I'm gonna exhale to lower back down. So tucking elbows into rib cage, little, very little pressure on palms as I inhale to rise up. Exhale, now I have my feet firmly planted. I'm back to the idea of pressing the tops of my feet into the mat. I inhale, rise up. Exhale, lower down 2 more times. Inhale, rise up. Exhale, lower. Last time. Inhale, rise up. If it's okay, hold here. I'm going to ask you to give your head a very slow shake no. We want to release that neck, no wrinkles in the back of the neck for this particular one. We're holding that height. Maybe we're able to hover palms. If that puts too much responsibility on that low back, place the palms back on. We've got 2 more breaths here. On your next exhale, pushing back into child's pose or staying on the belly, but letting hands slide down by your side and resting on a cheek. So again, if child's pose isn't suitable today for knees and low back, stay on belly, rest on a cheek with your hands down by your side. If you're in child's pose, you might find you want a little deeper reach, so you might send the knees just a little further out to frame your rib cage. Breathing fully here. Two more breaths, no matter where you're at. Full, deep breaths, bringing that breath into the backside body and side rib cages. We'll rise up into our tabletop. We're going to move through a little bit of opening and pigeon in our yawn class, and there'll be an option to go onto your back. So I'm going to show you that here in just a second. I'm going to bring my right knee forward between my hands. My ankle is going to sneak away towards the center of my body, and I'll take my back leg for me to walk back. And the first part of this pose, we might be up on fingertips, getting that stretch that we felt a little bit in our standing poses, or you may prefer to go right down to the floor. So that's our first option. For many of us, that does not work for our hips. The way that our hips have either come to be or how they are built in general, how those bones come together. And if that's the case, we're going to shift to our back. We'll cross our right ankle over the top of the left leg. We might get enough stretch there. We might draw the knee in towards the chest. Similar opener, just a less stress compression through the hip structure, less hard compression through the hip joints. No matter where you're at, allow yourself to settle in here for a subtle opening. Deep breaths, doing our best to relax into this. We're going to begin to release. If you are in pigeon, walking your way back up, both knees join each other. If you're resting on your back, you might either draw knees in towards the chest or send legs up towards the ceiling. So whatever helps here. We're going to shift sides. So now it's my left knee that comes forward. Your sides do not have to match because certainly your hip joints don't. So shifting to your back, if it makes sense, or coming from your back to shift into your pigeon pose. So maybe this first part of the pose, we come to fingertips, we feel more of a back bend. For those of us who are resting here in pigeon, we let ourselves come forward. Just a reminder, if you're resting on your back, it's now your left ankle that crosses over, The foot might stay on the floor, that right foot or that right knee might draw in. Allowing yourself to settle in here to breathe fully. A little longer hold to open up glutes, piriformis, IT band, all stubborn stuff. Let's do 2 more breaths, no matter where you're at. If you're in pigeon, we slowly rise up. We are going to be shifting to our backs. For those of you resting on your backs, good news is you're already there. Those of us coming to rest on our backs, just be careful, go slow, allow yourself an opportunity to adjust to that space. For everyone, as we come to our backs, if you'll draw your knees into your chest, give yourself a little rocking side to side. From there, we're going to send our legs up towards the ceiling, or rather our feet towards the ceiling. Some of us might get straight legs. Straight legs, again, the least important part about this. We're just reversing a little bit of energy and pretending we're doing legs on the wall, a little more relaxing than this. This one's a bit more invigorated. Just a length through the legs. If it feels good to you, you might even reach arms overhead. If it's very challenging in that low back, you actually might sneak hands underneath buns. That'll give you a little tilt and a little protection in that low back. So playing here for a moment with what feels good, with this reverse of energy in the body. And when you're ready, bringing arms out into a T. Hopefully you can see my feet are walking wide on my mat. But I'm going to start this little bit of twisting. And as I do, my knees dropping towards center. My feet are wide to allow my knee to go a little bit deeper. Now, if this is too deep, if this twist is a little too intense, feel free just to hang out in constructive rest pose where your feet are wide and your knees drop towards each other with ease. They don't have to move at all. If they are moving back and forth, maybe you're giving a little extra press of that inside thigh towards the mat, just to stretch that outside thigh. We're all going to meet in constructive rest pose. Feet are wide, knees now, or inner thighs now drop and touch each other. If it releases tension, we're going to give ourselves a bear hug. Sometimes that feels like it creates more tension, or it feels like it's too much pressure on the chest. And if that's the case, let the arms be wide and comfortable. Resting here with a few deep inhales and longer exhales. We begin to just let the exhale ease our body into a little more release if possible. Let's do 3 more breaths here in constructive rest pose. We're going to begin to move into final relaxation. If you're finding that this is relaxing to you, allow yourself to stay put. As you know, at the end of my classes, the invitation is to find a space for yourself that feels like it brings more ease into the body. So it does not have to look like a yoga shape. It can be anything. I know a few of you may have to log off and head into work or head into your day. If you can, give yourself just a couple of minutes here to rest in ease before you shift into that day. If you're able to stay and relax here, finding that space that brings the most ease into the body. As you're finding that space, give yourself those few deep inhales and longer exhales to settle into the weight of the body. We're going to use our breath again in a similar way that we did at the beginning of class to find some of these spaces of ease in the body. So if it makes sense for you, just following along with the sound of my voice, using your breath in the way that makes sense for you to invite a little more subtle release. Taking a deep inhale, we imagine the face. And as we exhale, depending on where you're at, we release the exhale and soften through the face, softening brows, any tension in the cheeks and jaw. And it may take a couple of breaths here. So we might gather that inhale again, exhaling to release this space of the neck below the jaw. Breathing in, exhaling, feeling ease come into the top ridge of the shoulders. Inhaling. On the exhale, feeling ease, release from this middle breastbone, collarbone notch all the way out to the shoulder joints. Breathing in. Exhaling, we imagine ease coming through shoulder joints and upper arms down to elbows. Inhaling, ease and release from elbows, forearms, wrists through palms. Breathing in. On our exhale, we have more ease that travels right from the bottom of the rib cage to the top hip bones. Breathing in, we shift to the back of the torso. As we exhale, more space and ease between shoulder blades and spine. Breathing in. Exhaling, more space and ease between bottom, back, rib cage and the top of the sacrum. Breathing in. As we exhale, we imagine the pelvis itself from front to back. Ease settling in from the top of the pelvis down to the tailbone. From the top of the sacrum down to the tailbone. Breathing in. As we exhale, more ease comes into those hip joints, to the tops of the thighs. Breathing in. As we exhale, more ease from the knees through the shins and calves, ankles and feet. Breathing in and exhaling through the entire body from top to bottom. 2 or 3 more breaths with that idea. Breathing in. Ease from face, shoulders, arm, front and back of torso, pelvis, and legs. Releasing now the breath, letting the body breathe itself, letting the breath travel as it chooses. Inviting the mind to quiet. And we let go of all of the doing of our morning. We invite ourselves to rest, to simply be, to be resting in ease and a sense of well-being, to be resting and relaxation if possible. Resting in ease, relaxing for the next 5 minutes or so. Beginning to bring awareness back to the sound of my voice, back to the space that you're resting in. Inviting that deeper inhale and a longer exhale. Beginning to reawaken the body, maybe wiggling fingers and toes. It might feel good to circle wrists and ankles. Maybe you stretch arms overhead or draw knees into chest. In your own way and your own time, we're going to begin to bring ourselves up into a seated position that feels comfortable to you. And as we begin to find that comfortable seat, we're going to finish off our practice today with less of maybe what we would consider pranayama, which is breath work, and more just observing breath. There's a lot of value to simply tuning in to your breath. And often we do this at the beginning of class where we're tuning into quality. So I'm going to offer up 4 qualities here, and I would like you to pick one to focus on. And normally we start with the quality of expansion and release. So where do we feel the breath expand into? Where do we feel it release or offer ease in the body? There's also the quality of sound. So maybe we're hearing our breath. It may be internal or it may be external to the room. This idea of temperature. So maybe we're feeling the temperature of the breath as it travels in and out the nose. Or perhaps rhythm, where we're noticing the number of beats it takes us to breathe in and the number of beats it takes us to breathe out. So picking one of those qualities. Maybe it is expansion, release, sound, temperature, rhythm. And for the next 2 minutes or so, noticing this particular quality. We notice with curiosity, we leave that self-judgment out of it if we can. Being aware of breath, and in particular, one quality. Taking that deeper inhale and longer exhale, and noticing here at the end of class how you're feeling. How are you feeling in the physical body? And perhaps how are you feeling in the emotional and mental bodies? And if this gesture feels okay to you, we're going to place our palms together, resting our thumbs right in front of our heart. May all be well. May all have peace. And may we all be filled with compassion and loving kindness. The light in me is honored and grateful for the light in each of you. I bow to you. Namaste.